Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it. Thank you very much for providing your testimony today and spending some time with the Ag Committee. This is going to be an exciting year for the Farm Bill. This is a bipartisan effort to really drive home where we can find relation on the Farm Bill and ideally move forward a Farm Bill that will help all of our producers across the country. I represent Iowa's 3rd Congressional District, and we are proud to be the home of one of the leading producers of corn, soybean, egg, pork, and I'm a sheep farming family, so a little bit of that as well. With respect to corn specifically in 2022, Iowa produced roughly 2.4 billion bushels, and this is seen as the nation's most valuable crop going forward. As each of you know, our farmers have faced several years of skyrocketing input costs, both to the grower, to the producer, and ultimately to families like mine with 5 girls and 1 13-year-old boy that really make things expensive. The global market volatility, the lack of competition, the consolidation, supply chain disruptions, an ongoing war in Eastern Europe, and the continued placement of increased strains on our producers that feed and fuel the world has taken a toll. You've mentioned this before, and so, Mr. Solomon, I'd like to begin with you. As we move deeper into our Farm Bill discussions this year, what can Congress do to ensure that farmers have access to the tools that best protect them from a volatile commodities market and price risks? And further, how might our producers best access and utilize future markets for the purpose to manage these risks?
So great question. I think we've touched on this a little bit in different pieces, and this is why it's important that as an industry we come before you, because we represent kind of the full ecosystem here: clearinghouses, exchanges, industry bodies, end users. Right. And I think that it's relative to the Farm Bill piece. I mentioned some of the specifics, very granular on the USDA side. There are so many ways in which we are dependent on a fully functioning Farm Bill to make sure that our processes work and create transparency and hedging tools available to all producers and end users. I think Mr. Edmonds made a really good point, and I touched on this before. Education and access. CME Group has 3,600 employees globally. We don't have enough to canvass every single co-op across the U.S., so we rely on intermediaries, regional co-ops, and introducing brokers. As I mentioned, I'm not kidding, we canvass state farms and we do 4-H clubs and we hand out ribbons for prize heifers and things like that, right, to make sure that people understand, there's a connection between family farms and setting the wholesale price of that particular commodity, whether it's livestock, whether it's dairy, whether it's grain. So, we can't do that alone. We're simply not big enough. So we work through partnerships of intermediaries, introducing brokers that are not clearing members. They themselves use clearing members to get access to our markets. So it's a long chain of access and education. So I just, again, come back to the point that Mr. Edmonds said. It is very much down to educating people on both the benefits of hedging. And I think this is a case study of the last 2 years of why hedging can help manage some of these costs. Number 2, how you access these markets, what it means to you. Even if you're not a direct consumer of trading futures and options on derivatives exchanges, how you can benefit from the transparency of standardized pricing so you know what your crop is worth because you've got some basis differential to a standardized crop. All of those pieces matter, and I think education, access is things that we work at but we can't do alone. So anyway, we would welcome a discussion where we could use that Farm Bill reauthorization and get that through to say we need troops of folks to go out there and educate and train and create more access. We would love to be a part of that conversation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Ms. Creighton, for you, according to a recent survey by the Committee on Payments and Market Infrastructure, roughly 20% of our clearinghouses provide tools for end users to estimate how their margin requirements might change during the period of market volatility. So staying on the same theme, can you walk us through the possible solutions clearinghouses could take to enhance transparency of margins required for farmers, ranchers, and others to better help us prepare for future stress events?
Sure, thank you. Great question. Again, I think we talked a bit about this before, but I think to add a few points to the overall discussion, we think there are tools that certain exchanges and CCPs have that they provide to end users and customers to be able to model their margin. We think part of the benefit of what we can do on the forward is to be able to provide tools and more transparency about what happens during extremely volatile markets, right? How do margins move in order to be able to help them project what their funding needs are. That's how we think about when we risk manage our clients directly. We spend a lot of time educating them on what our risk models do, how they react during certain stresses, so they can appropriately understand what are the guardrails and what is the funding that they need on hand to be able to adequately prepare for that. So I think web-based tools, interaction, and preparing clearing members and providing us with access to that information so we can then further educate clients, I think will be an important way to leverage the ecosystem and to be able to provide that education back.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much for being here today. Hope your farming season goes well. With that, Mr. Chair, I yield back my time.